But before we do that, let me back up a little bit and talk about how you receive apocalyptic truth. We talked a little bit about this when I surveyed apocalyptic in general. There are two ways in which the participant in the apocalyptic message can get apocalyptic truth. Visions being interpreted by a divine being is pretty common, right? That's one that we've seen up to now. We saw that in Daniel, we see that in Zechariah, and we've seen that in the first three chapters of Revelation, where the exalted Son of Man from 1:9 to 3:22 has been interpreting this vision for John all the way through. The other way that a person can get a message is to be taken on an otherworldly journey, or a rapture experience, if you will. The term rapture is a Latin term originally that meant to snatch up, take away. It is the translation of the First Thessalonians 4 passage in the Latin Vulgate, when those who are still alive will rise to meet in the air. That's where that word comes from. Obviously, rapture also means joyful, ecstatic experience. But in this case, it's an experience of being taken up, and it's not uncommon. I mean, the Second Corinthians, Paul talks about knowing a man who was taken up into the third heaven and shown around. There are other traditions that have those kinds of vision. Yeah, it's a tour. Well, usually that's how it goes, and I mentioned that. Exactly. Normally, these otherworldly journeys keep up the journey motif. It is like, and on your left, you'll notice the Crystal Sea. On the right, you'll see the 7-Eleven we just went in. We're walking and we're walking. Exactly. That's the way these visions normally go. Revelation goes against that. It is not, Revelation doesn't have and then John walked by the Crystal Sea, and then as he went around the left, he saw the backside of it. That's not you really don't get that in Revelation. This is it's sort of like the otherworldly experience, but not quite. But this is not uncommon. I mean, these kind of ecstatic, revelatory experiences are not uncommon, and that actually picks us up from Revelations 4 to 22. This part happens in heaven. 1:9, 3:22 happens apparently on Patmos in a vision. The rest of it happens in a vision of heaven itself, which is pretty cool. For that reason, and I would say that because the journey motif doesn't hold, that's another clue. It is probably not helpful to read these moments as sequential or chronological. In other words, going through Revelation is like trying to give yourself the timeline of a dream. It doesn't make a lot of sense to think, the timeline of a dream doesn't quite tell you the whole story. And so I think the fact that you don't get that, and then he walked around here, and then he walked around there, and then God showed him this, and then God showed him that. Because you don't have that, I think that's just another clue that this is not that kind of a vision. These are more creatively thematic visions that we have going on here. And at times I would argue almost lyrical. That there's a musical quality to the book of Revelation. Not just the fact that there's a lot of music in Revelation. I mean, there's a lot of singing. The angels and the people and the crowds, everybody's singing in Revelation. But even the organization of the book itself has an almost lyrical quality to it, which I think is pretty cool. There's almost like stanzas when we get to the seven seals and the seven bowls and the seven trumpets. It's like there's a rhythm to it. So we'll see that as we get a little further into the book. So, these sections, chapters 4 and 5, deal with the throne of God. And there are several mentions of the throne throughout the book, 7, 9, 11, 19, 20, and 22. But 4 and 5 are whole chapters of about 12 verses each, dedicated to the throne of God. I mean, this is the focus of chapters 4 and 5, is the throne of God. So, I mean, it's really... that's an important thing, right? If you're going to devote 2 chapters of your book, of your 22 chapter book, to one image, that's an important image. Throne of God is God's power. Throne of God is God's rule. And in a book that is dealing with the primary concern of emperor worship, it's important to drive home this point about who actually is in control. There are people who try to, and I think profitably so, read the images of the throne of God and the throne vision in 4 and 5 as connected to elements of the Roman imperial throne room. And I'm sure that would work. This vision of God's throne has some obvious adaptations from Ezekiel. Most explicitly Ezekiel. There's some Isaiah adaptations as well, but it is clear that our author has read Ezekiel and is adapting these visions to this particular vision. Chapter 4, verse 1. After this, so this is after the visions, I looked, and there in heaven a door stood open. And the first voice, which I had heard speaking to me like a trumpet, this would be Jesus, said, "Come up here." And hey, come on up. Just, what you doing? Just come on up here.
Come on down.
Come on down, and I will show you what must take place after this. So there's an invitation given by the exalted Jesus. That was the voice speaking like a trumpet, that has invited him into heaven. At once I was in the Spirit, and there in heaven stood a throne with one seated on the throne. And the one seated there looked like jasper and carnelian, and around the throne is a rainbow that looks like an emerald. So precious stones that we have here. Around the throne are 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones of the 24 elders, dressed in white robes with golden crowns on their heads. Coming from the throne are flashes of lightning, rumblings, and peals of thunder. And in front of the throne burn 7 flaming torches, which are the 7 spirits of God. And in front of the throne there's something like a sea of glass, like crystal. If you know Ezekiel, you're going to hear these echoes right away. First of all, lightning and thunder, theophany. You don't get a lot of description of what God looks like because you don't do that. Just like Ezekiel, it is possible to be idolatrous with language, that you can describe God, if you will, implies you can describe God. And so our authors very often, I love Ezekiel's approach to this. When Ezekiel saw the throne that was seated on the great dome of heaven, that was seated on the animals in Ezekiel chapter 1, the creatures, he didn't say, Isaiah 6, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne high and lofty. That's not what Ezekiel does. Ezekiel saw this was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. That's all he was willing to go. It was like, I saw what kind of looked like what seemed to be God's glory in a way. Ish, right? That is Ezekiel's vision. John is siding with Ezekiel on this. No description. When idolatry is a main concern, you avoid it at every turn, including the idolatrous language, and an acknowledgement that, God is bigger than that. We have the 24 elders. Why 24? Well, it is 2 times 12. The 7 spirits of God is the complete Holy Spirit. That it is not uncommon that the Spirit of God is represented by 7. Often the 7 spirits of God. There are other religions. I'm thinking particularly of Zoroastrianism. Ahura Mazda had 7 Amisha Spentas, 7 holy spirits that proceeded forth from it. I don't know that that's the connection here so much as it is simply talking about the whole Spirit of God in this case. So, yeah, that's the Holy Spirit is there. Why 24 elders? Later at the end of this, a lot of people have speculated what the 24 is, and there's several options. The one that I like, and I leave this to others, I like 12 disciples and 12 patriarchs. So the 12 patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 disciples. So, and that brings 24. And I like that because the foundations of the New Jerusalem tie into those ideas as well. And so I think that's what's represented here as well. Don't know for sure, but white robes, golden crowns on their head, flashes of lightning. The rainbow, anybody who knows Old Testament should immediately associate rainbow with God's mercy, God's covenant, a God who's promised to never again allow chaos to reign in this world. That's what the rainbow is promising. It's not going to allow the world to uncreate itself. God is with it to the end. And to drive that point home, there is actually a sea in the presence of God, which normally is the personification of primordial chaos, right? The sea is evil. The sea is where it's restrained, but breaks forth every now and then. Not in the presence of God. In the presence of God, the sea is like glass, like crystal. It is no threat at all. Chaos is no threat. We will see that chaos is not abolished until the end of the story. Spoiler alert. Chaos is not abolished till the end of the story, but at least here, in this time, in the presence of God, chaos does not win the day, which I think is significant. So as I say, lots of images of Ezekiel. We get some more here in the next section. Around the throne, on each side are four living creatures. Remember, four usually represents like the whole earth. And we'll see with the animals, the creatures here, you get that. Full of eyes in front and behind. So they got eyeballs on front, eyeballs behind. The first living creature was like a lion, the second living creature like an ox, the third living creature with the face like a human face, and the fourth living creature like a flying eagle. So in Ezekiel, each creature had all four faces. So on each side, okay? And it's hard to tell in Ezekiel if there are four heads or one head with four faces. And the text is, again, Ezekiel really good at making sure you can't draw Ezekiel chapter 1. That is a feature, not a bug. And so hard to know. In Revelation, the creatures are not composite creatures, but in fact, individual looking creatures, like a lion, like an ox, like a human face, like a flying eagle. So not saying it is, but it is like that, having the form of that, much like Ezekiel does. So again, not a lot of detail so that as to be able to draw it. What do these creatures represent? They aren't quite the cherubic, the cherubim that you get in the Old Testament, but I do think that's what they are envisioning. I do think that they are this representation of all of the living creatures on the whole earth, of which humanity is a part. There was a much later rabbinic tradition that these specific creatures, lion, ox, eagle, and human, represented sort of all of the individual aspects of power in the world, intelligence and speed and ferocity and all of that. If that tradition was alive 500 years before then, maybe that's what's being called to mind here, right? All that humanity has to offer, or all the best that the creation has to offer, is subservient to the divine's throne. I mean, that works. I do think that, these kind of creatures are always in attendance of kings in the ancient Near East. They are the gates of this palace. They are the sitting on the throne, under the throne of the king. The idea always being that this human king is, commanding these amazing, terrifying creatures that obey his command. Here they are worshiping. It's not quite the terror that you would expect. It's worship in this. All four living creatures, each of them with 6 wings. There's a Isaiah reference in Ezekiel. I believe they have 4 wings. In Isaiah, they have 6. Full of eyes, inside, all around and inside. The eyes are fascinating because the wheels have eyes. The wheel within the wheel has eyes in it in Ezekiel. So eyes are a common feature of the divine beings. Day and night, without ceasing, they sing. So these creatures are not attacking. They are worshiping. This is a liturgical setting. This is a very liturgical setting. And we get the Triagion, holy, 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 which we're going to sing this Sunday, actually. We're first hymn this Sunday. Holy, 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 the Lord God Almighty, who was and who is to come. So very similar to Isaiah 6, but we add who was and is to come, which is obviously a title used of God and a title Jesus uses of Jesus as well. So remember that, the subtle. We're going to get some explicit Jesus is God stuff tonight. We've already gotten the allusions already. If you're paying attention, you've seen it already, but it's going to get harder to miss now, unless you're reading it in English, in which case it's easy to miss, and that's what got Mike wound up today. So we are reading it in English. Whenever the creatures give glory and honor and thanks to the one who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall before the one who is seated on the throne and worship the one who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, so their honor and their power they are giving away. They are not showing off with or using for self. They take the crown, their power, their gifts, and they cast them down before God, and they worship and they sing. You are worthy, O Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created. God is creator. So a lot of creation imagery obviously coming up in this, but God is the one to whom the world belongs. And that's part of the message here. Yeah. Chapter 5. This is fascinating. And this is what I think is really cool. So I get excited about this part. Not as excited as Mike gets. I'll try to convey how excited Mike gets, but we'll follow. Then I saw in the right hand of the one seated on the throne a scroll written on the inside and on the back and sealed with 7 seals. What does this mean? Well, first of all, it's really sealed. It's a scroll. Scrolls, not uncommon, are sealed, and scrolls are not uncommon in visions like this. I mean, even Ezekiel gets a scroll that he has to eat back in the book of Ezekiel. We won't talk about that. We get that here too. The scroll is written on the front and back. There are some who suggest that this happened to wills, that a will would be, written out and then they'd seal it and then they write on the outside what the inside's about. Maybe, but I would say within apocalypses, that scrolls typically are mapping out what's to come. They kind of give you the roadmap for what's coming. And I think that's what's happening here. So you have these seals that it's really sealed well, probably so you imagine a scroll and you've got 7 seals and you can peel back a little at a time as you go through the 7 seals. Okay. I saw a mighty angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look into it. So anybody? Anyone want to do it? No? Can't find anybody? Well, I began to weep bitterly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or look into it. Well, this is it's sad, right? Building drama. This is not uncommon. So, then, don't worry. Don't be upset, Tom. Pull it together, man. Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered, so he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." Well, that is good news. A lion. That's pretty cool. I mean, lions are big and strong and powerful. Looking forward to seeing this lion. So John turns to look for the lion, right? This was cool. And what does he see? Then I saw between the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders a lamb standing as if it had been slaughtered, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. So the lion can do it. And I turned and I saw a lamb, a slaughtered lambkin. And here is where I put a quarter in him today, because I was confused where between the throne is. Because remember in the previous chapter, the throne, the 4 living creatures on each side, and the 24 elders sitting around it. So where is between the creatures and the throne? I was so bothered, I looked at the Greek. That's how upset I was. I went to the Greek. And between is in the middle. So literally it says, "Then I saw in the middle of the throne and the 4 living creatures." The lamb is on the throne. Yes, not between the throne and the people or off to the side. The lamb is on the throne, which should not surprise us because Jesus himself says at the end of chapter 3 last week, "To him that overcomes, I will let sit on the throne where I am sitting," where I am. He claims to be on the throne at the end of chapter 3. A God claim, by the way. And now we discover that the lion is a lamb, a slaughtered lamb, on the throne. Now, this is important because this is misunderstood. Most apocalyptic, the lamb would be a lion, roaring with red, right? You look innocent, but don't push him because he'll come roaring, right? Not in Revelation. In Revelation, John has subverted that reading. The lion is actually the defeated lamb who has overcome. How? By being slaughtered. And that's why the lamb is on the throne. And what do we let sit on the throne? Who sits on the throne? Not a trick question. So yes, God, this is the throne of God, and the lamb is on it. Meaning that the lamb is, yes, the lamb is God. Yes. This is huge, right? I mean, that Jesus is God, not like God, not a friend of God's, not, on the throne, Jesus is God. This is a huge deal. It would have been huge news for their monotheists, right? But yes, that's a big deal that Jesus is God. This chapter is the same as Philippians chapter 2, right? Being God, Jesus made himself nothing. This is the same as John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, right? This is a big deal. They are monotheists. What is the one thing that is said in every single synagogue, every single Sabbath, every single synagogue everywhere in the world? Shema Yisrael. No. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. Exactly. And so now Jesus is God, not just Messiah. He's yes, right. Yes. The Jews and the Muslims say there is one God, and the Hindus say, why stop at three? No, that is not what we're dealing with here. This is the same thing. Jesus is God. That is a huge, but the way he does this is a beautiful, artful creation of expression of monotheism, homoousia monotheism. Jesus is God in a way that is poetic and powerful and visionary. Okay, I did get as excited as Mike. You're welcome. Jesus is the lion. The lion's worthy to open the scroll. When I looked, the lion was a lamb, and the lamb's on the throne. And nope, it does.
So but therefore, God's the lion.
Ergo, the transitive property should suggest
that exactly.
The lambkin. No one said, "Hey, who let the lamb on the throne? Get off of there." That's not what happened, right? Shoot, boy, you lick the door and the lamb jumps on the throne. Anyway, I told him not to leave the door open.
Who left the lamb on the throne?
Exactly. That's not what happens. He went and took the scroll from the right hand of the one who was seated on the throne. So the lamb, and everybody's there. Okay. It's a big throne. When he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell before the lamb, each holding a harp. Liturgical worship harps were used in the temple, and golden bowls of incense, again used in temple. The incense, thankfully self-interpreted, are the prayers of the saints. So this creature and the elders are worshiping, taking prayers to and worshiping the Lamb. Who are you supposed to worship only? God. And they're worshiping the Lamb, meaning the Lamb is God. This is a big deal. I'm trying to get you to say Jesus is God. That's a big deal. I know you know, but they didn't know. So they sing a new song. You are worthy to. This is good stuff. We should be on Twitch, Thomas, not on Facebook. People would love this. I'm just saying. You are worthy to take the scroll, to open it. They've sung a new song. Remember our new song in Psalm 99 and Isaiah that we sing a new song. We have a new song. We've gone holy, holy, holy. Who you are worthy. Remember God in the previous chapter. You are worthy to receive honor and praise and glory. And now they sing a new song. You are worthy to the Lamb, using the same language they're worshiping God. They're worshiping Jesus. You are worthy to take the scroll, to open its seals, for you were slaughtered by your blood. You ransomed or purchased or redeemed or released. It's actually like buying out of slavery. Saints from every tribe and language and people and nation. You've made them to be a kingdom of priests serving our God, and they will reign over the whole earth. So we get a new song toward the Lamb. Yeah. They would hear this as Jesus being portrayed as God. Persons, if you will. I mean, we talk about 3 persons, 1 God. Maybe that's a language they could use. I don't know. I don't know if they had language to process it this way, in a way. I really don't. Yes, I think it's clear John is saying Jesus is God. There's no question. And to the point that the elders are bringing prayers and worship to the Lamb. Remember, you're supposed to worship God alone. And that's what they're doing. Then I looked, and I heard the voice of many angels surrounding the throne, and the living creatures and the elders. They numbered myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands, singing with full voice, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slaughtered to receive power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing." Does that sound familiar? But it was used of God in the previous chapter, is my point. God is receiving honor and power and glory and blessing. And now Jesus is wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing. That's a big deal. Then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all that is in them singing. Everybody is singing. Everywhere. All of creation. To the one seated on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and might forever and ever. And the 4 living creatures said, Amen. And the elders fell down and worshiped. Check out the structures of chapters 4 and 5. Where Revelation 4 is talking about God and Revelation 5 is talking about the Lamb. You have God's glory and the Lamb's glory. The worship of God, the worship of the Lamb. The first hymn, the narrative, and the second hymns, it is exactly the same structure. You are not going to miss this. Remember, Hebrew poetry is defined by structure. This is not Hebrew poetry. This is Greek, but it is a Jewish writer, and it is a poetic expression of this vision. This is when you take 2 chapters to say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This is what you get, right? This is when you take 2 chapters to say, being God, Jesus made himself nothing, right? Jesus overcame by being a slaughtered lamb. The lamb is not a lion. The lion is a lamb, and the lamb won not by fighting like a lion. The lamb overcame, as Ephesians and the other churches are challenged to do, by sacrifice. There's a difference between overcame in Revelation from the way other apocalyptic uses that word.
Yeah.
You overcome in Daniel, you overcome in Enoch. People overcome by battle, by fighting, right? The angel Michael fights for Israel and exactly. Here in Revelation, you overcome by enduring. You overcome by martyrdom. You overcome by being like Jesus, which means being a slaughtered lamb. And Revelation 3 says if you do that, you get your own throne, like the elders. What Mike was struggling with was how these Bibles are afraid to pull the trigger on the lamb in the middle of the throne. That they just are unwilling to say that the lamb is on the throne when it seems clear. And Mike was really wound up about this in the text today. I read it to Cindy and Thomas, that he's like, it's like not playing the canons in the 1812 overture. This is the climax of all of this. Jesus is God on the throne. No, we can't play cannons in the symphony, clutching pearls. It's like, yes, we can play cannons in the symphony. This is worth cannons. He is the lamb is on the throne. It was really pretty funny. So he was, and then he yelled at me for putting quarters in him. Stop putting quarters in. Get him all out of it.
Didn't they translate it?
Even Peterson, they are unwilling to pull the trigger on that. I don't know. I mean, it seems obvious to me in the Greek, especially when you consider the last thing Jesus says in Revelation 3 is I'm on the throne, and then you come here and they just won't pull the trigger on that translation. And I don't know why. I mean, it is one of the most beautiful and powerful expressions of the Trinity that I've ever seen. So I just get excited. Obviously, I get excited about this. This is something that came from reading Malcolm, to discover how about that? Jesus is God. I mean, like you said, it's not new, but expressed in a way in the Bible that I'd never seen before. This is what I said. The book of Revelation is a New Testament book. It's not something different. The Jesus of Revelation is the Jesus of the Gospels. And it's hard to see sometimes, and sometimes even harder when our translators do what they do. But that is such a powerful statement of who we are called to be and who Jesus is, and expressed in this powerful visional way. It's just, I mean, I think one of Mike's complaints was, here you have this book that is based on ecstatic visions and dramatic presentations, and people try to translate it so it makes sense in real life.